Welcome into another episode of the Laser Bros podcast. We're your hosts, Logan and Luke Lazarchik. Today we'll be talking about some rumors, some trade rumors, some news breaking from the NFL Combine. The NFL Combine is this week. Before we get started our video today, just want to say to like the video, subscribe to the channel. And with that being said, Luke, NFL Combine started yesterday. I believe it was defensive lineman and offensive lineman yesterday. And this is a time where teams are discussing, there's a lot of, conversations going on regarding trades, players' contracts. We saw a player sign a contract today, and we'll break that down here shortly. But, the NFL really is 365 days a year. There's really not a break. The Super Bowl was 2 weeks ago, and now we're kind of already focusing and turning the page to 2025.
No, yeah, and we've seen some trends going on early on. I saw some reporters talking about how you won't see – it's not a great free agent class. So you're going to see a lot of extensions and trades, things like that. The draft class is at top end, talent has depth. So it's kind of – I feel like it's a different type of offseason. It feels a little unique because there's just not like that. I feel like there was one and now he's gone, but no big trade or superstars that we're looking at. Maybe some stars, but none of the top dogs.
Yeah, the top name that comes to mind when thinking about free agency is T. Higgins. But like you said, he's not like a superstar. He's definitely a very good player. Mm-hmm. He could be a number one in a lot of places. So maybe he could develop into a star. We just haven't seen it because he's behind Jamar Chase. But yeah, like you said, the free agency market, there's not a lot of players that, are superstar players, like you said. So it is going to be interesting. I think that, like you said, a lot of extensions, a lot of trades. And we did see a restructured contract extension today, and that's the main story today is Matthew Stafford going back to the Rams. It was reported this morning by Diana Rossini that Stafford's representatives and the Raiders and Giants had not come to agreement, but they had the contract, pieces kind of sorted out. I think it was like 90 to 100 million guaranteed in both those contracts, 2-year contracts. But he goes back to the Rams, and now those teams have to kind of go back to the drawing board in terms of addressing the quarterback position. But for me, both those teams, especially the Giants, didn't really make sense. And for Stafford, vice versa, it didn't really make sense either.
I think Raiders would have made sense.
The Raiders, yeah. The Giants did not know.
I don't think the Giants made any sense there. And now we're seeing that they're interested in Rodgers. So it's just kind of like I think their head coach GM duo, or at least Joe Shine is trying to win some games, keep his job. I think that's what they're trying to do. And then maybe still try to get a guy at 3, but they're trying to win some games this upcoming season. Raiders, I do think Raiders are interesting. They have 6th pick. Get a quarterback, you have Brady's influence. I like Pete Carroll, and they have Chip Kelly. I like Chip Kelly. So I honestly think they're building something that's pretty solid. Nothing yet to compete with the Chiefs, but I think just getting quarterback to win some games, I don't think that hurts you in that situation. I think it's a little different than Giants who are just trying to win games, keep jobs. But, he stays with the Rams. It's kind of boring result, honestly. Not boring, but it would have been more interesting if you went to Raiders or Giants or Steelers, or I was thinking Colts would have been good because they're trying to get competition for Anthony Richardson. But, stays with the Rams. They stay one of the better teams in the NFC.
Well, I think if he went to the Colts, I don't think it'd be much of a competition. I think Stafford would just take the job. I don't think Richardson.
No, yeah.
I don't think it'd be much competition. I do think, for me, I think the Raiders made sense because they have talent there. Tom Brady's there. Definitely his influence can persuade quarterbacks to go there and big-time players to go there. And it's in Vegas, no state tax, I believe. And it's an indoor stadium. You have a good offense coordinator there. I think that would have been interesting. But for me, I don't know what those teams – if you had to give up 3rd or 6th pick, I don't know if that's –
I don't think they were giving that up.
Especially from Giants' perspective, they're if they were a quarterback away, I would get it. But they have so many other needs on that roster. And they're one of the worst offensive lines in the league. So I don't really see Stafford – I don't think he would have survived there, to be honest with you, just because he's been injured already in his career. And the offensive line has struggled throughout the last 2 years. And they've tried to address that position. They kind of whipped on free agency signings and drafting tackles and guards in the draft as well.
No, yeah, that destination didn't make any sense. I honestly think, even though I don't think it's perfect, I think the Rodgers makes more sense with the Giants because that's probably 1 year he could start. You draft a quarterback. I mean, Rodgers gets a lot of flack and deservedly so, but he's honestly done a pretty solid job as like a mentor type.
Yeah, but for me, he wants to win a championship. I don't think
but I think he may not have the choice.
Well, no, let's say the Giants are the only team that's interested in him. I think he retires if that's the.
I don't think so. I thought I saw something saying that he reached out to the Giants at one point. I think he's interested in playing. I think he just wants to play and just kind of prove people wrong.
I mean, yeah, I still know that. Like I said, the offensive line is very bad. He can't really move at this point in his career. You didn't really see him move a lot. He's basically a pocket quarterback at this point. He's solely in the pocket. I don't think that's a good fit. I don't know what the Giants do. I mean, at this point, I would just draft a quarterback at 3 or possibly trade up if you really like.
I think signing Rodgers doesn't change what you're doing in the draft.
Well, I don't think so either. I think it would be like you said, but I just still don't. I don't know. I know he has experience now in the New York market, but I just don't see it being a good fit there.
But I'm fine with it because if you're not, I saw that they may trade. I don't know if they're going to trade for him, but like if they do that, it's like I'm only taking him if his cap number's low. That's the only way.
Yeah, and back to Stafford. So it is reported that it is less money. We don't know the amount of money the contract is, concrete money, but we do know it's less than what he was going to make if he did go to the Giants or the Raiders. But the Rams and Stafford staying together was the best possible outcome for both sides. Stafford can continue to compete for a Super Bowl, and he gives the Rams the best chance of winning a Super Bowl. So I think, coming to agreement, and the fact that they didn't have to pay him $50 million a year, I think is a win for them, and it's also a win for him because now he gets paid closer to what he deserves. He's definitely a top 10 quarterback, arguably a top 5 quarterback, and the money he was going to make this year, it was less than $30 million he was going to make. So, and no guaranteed money. So he gets the contract that he wants. He gets to stay. It did come down to money, but I do wonder if the Cooper Kupp, them trading or wanting to trade Cooper Kupp kind of irked Stafford a bit. And I don't think that, that was the main reason he was pursuing other opportunities.
I don't think so. I think he found his guy.
I do think that was part of the equation.
I think he found his guy in Puka. I mean, he was targeting Puka. I don't think that. I think it was just money, and then he stayed for comfortability and lifestyle, and still having a good chance to win. I don't think Cooper Kupp affects that.
So let's move to one of those teams that wanted Stafford, the Raiders. So shortly after this news broke that Stafford was staying with LA, I believe it was Jordan Schultz broke that, or no, it was Mike Silver. Broke up the Raiders.
Get the reporters right, man. A lot of reporter drama.
Russell Wilson or Sam Darnold as an ex-quarterback. If it comes down to those two players, I think it's pretty easy which direction they should go. And I know Russell Wilson has the relationship with Pete Carroll, but I think going to Sam Darnold is a much better option than Russell Wilson. Do you agree with that, or do you see it the other way?
He's better than Sam Darnold, or he's better than Russell Wilson, but then it comes down to money. Is Sam Darnold going to want like a 3-year, 150, like 120 guaranteed? Meanwhile, you can maybe get
He's
Russell.
not getting $50 million anywhere.
I think Darnold's going to get the same kind of deal down to money.
Mayfield got.
I mean, hypothetically, but that's what I'm just saying. If you can get that type of deal, yeah. But let's say he's shooting for the moon, or let's say the Giants, because I also told the Giants have interest in Darnold. Let's say they're offering him a ton, and so then you have to offer that much. I could see why going to Russell Wilson would be the better move, because I really think they're just trying to win some games this year and establish something, which I respect. I respect them doing that, and I just think it's different from the Giants. Giants, I think, is just such a mess. But the Raiders feel like they're building a core. And so, yeah, I prefer Sam Darnold, but money is probably going to be a big factor in that. And it's interesting what they got going on. It's pretty.
I just think Russell Wilson, at this point, he's so dependent on the moon ball and the deep shot. I just don't think that's sustainable. And you kind of saw it last year at Pittsburgh. It worked when he initially came into the starting role. But once teams are like, we're just going to force you to try to beat us in the middle of the field and beat us in between numbers, their offense kind of just staggered. So for me, if you can get Darnold for a Baker Mayfield type contract with that talent, with the play calling, with the culture that Pete Carroll may establish there, I do think Sam Darnold's a much better option. And who knows, they may have a quarterback there at 6, or they may trade up to take one of those quarterbacks. So I think the Raiders have a lot of avenues that they can go through to address the quarterback position. But in this case, I mean, I think one's much more of a clear option than the other. But I do think Raiders are a very interesting team this upcoming season. I think if they can land a quarterback, I do think they have the talent offensively to pose a threat to a degree to certain teams. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team by any stretch, but especially in the AFC. But I do think that any given Sunday they can win games with that offense, and you have Max Crosby on the defensive side of the ball.
No, yeah, I think their team. Yeah, I think you worded it great. How they can beat anyone on any given Sunday. Just, I mean, they beat the Chiefs the year they won the Super Bowl, but Chiefs were playing bad at that point.
Yeah,
but I do have a feeling they're not going to like settle for quarterback. Like that's my gut call. Like either Sam Darnold or they're trading up for a quarterback, which makes it very interesting. Because what if they come away and I don't know the exact date free agency starts.
It's March 10th is when teams can start negotiating deals with players with unrestricted free agents, and I think March 14th is when March 12th or March 14th is when it officially begins. And like and I don't mean to cut you off, but like trading up in the draft has been something that a lot of people have been talking about when it comes to the Raiders. But the only team I really see them trading up with and realistically getting the guy that they want is Tennessee, because Cleveland I don't think is going to trade back. They're going to take a quarterback. The Giants I think Giants may trade up themselves, but they're definitely going to be in the quarterback market. Patriots at that point, both those quarterbacks may be gone, and maybe they really like Jackson Dart or a third quarterback outside of Sanders and Ward. But I don't see that being the case. So
if you're taking Jackson Dart in the top 10, it's like, what are you doing?
No, I don't think that's what they should do. But like, who knows? But at Patriots at 4, I don't see it happening. At 5, at that point, there's just no point of trading up. I think Tennessee's the only spot where they could trade up. But at the same time, I think Tennessee, if they trade down, prefer to trade down to 2 or 3 so that they can still get Abdul Carter. So I do think the Raiders are kind of a tough spot.
There's no real chance that Titans draft like Abdul Carter, and then Browns go Hunter, and Giants get either quarterback. And I mean, we just don't know how much these teams love these quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what if they just don't love them? And what if the Titans are like, we'd rather wait till next year? Or what if the Browns are like, let's just move on? And then what if, I mean, Giants take one. Giants, I feel like are a lock to take quarterback unless they sign Sam Darnold, which I don't see happening. So I think they may be able to sit there at 6, but it just makes it interesting this year with the quarterback market. I think specifically Sam Darnold, because if you sign Sam Darnold, you're not drafting quarterback. But if you sign Russell Wilson or Rodgers or Daniel Jones or something like that, you're probably drafting one. So Sam Darnold's going to be very influential in this draft, even after he.
You bring up a good point. I do think signing Sam Darnold actually opens up many more possibilities for Raiders at that 6th spot, because I think if you sign Darnold, it's going to be a 3-year deal, close to $100 million total. And I think at that point you're probably not going to be looking. Sam Darnold's probably better than. I would probably take Sam Darnold over at least the 3rd quarterback, and I may take him over Sanders and Ward in this draft. But I think maybe if you sign Darnold, you could go Gentry at 6 and be really bold and have Gentry and Bowers at your disposal for Sam Darnold. So
that'd be nuts.
I do think the Raiders have a lot of possibilities if they sign Darnold. If you sign Wilson, like you said, I think they're going to draft a quarterback and have Wilson either play a year or the rookie kind of takes over once Russell Wilson inevitably struggles, in my opinion. So I do think that the Raiders should be pretty aggressive in the quarterback market. I don't think they should settle. And they have the offensive talent to really be an explosive offense, I believe. Offensive line may be an issue, but I do think,
I think the line wasn't terrible last year, and you have Jacoby Myers.
It was fine, I think.
Yeah, it was fine, and that's honestly fine if you're developing something. They have Jacoby Myers at receiver, Trey Tucker at receiver. He's fine. So I wonder if you sign Darnold, are you thinking receiver at 6? Maybe you trade back and take receiver. I do think they need to get a running back. They haven't had a running back.
Well, and it's a running back. It's a loaded draft at running back position. So maybe they do go receiver and then take a running back later in the draft. Who knows? I do think they need defense as well. So I also think if they sign Darnold, let's say, I think you could also trade that pick back and accumulate more draft capital to address more positions. So I do like if they do go after Darnold or just any quarterback. I guess Darnold's the only really quarterback on the free agency market that allows the Raiders to do these type of things. Because like you said, Rodgers, I don't think it does. Russell Wilson, I don't think does. Kirk Cousins doesn't. So yeah, I
don't forget Danny Dimes. Don't forget Danny Dimes. It's gonna land somewhere.
All right, next topic.
Just Chiefs, wait till he takes over Anthony Richardson, Logan. Just wait.
Oh, I should cry. News from yesterday: the Kansas City Chiefs tagged Trey Smith, and to be honest, I did not see this coming because Nate Taylor reported earlier last week that the Chiefs were not going to use any of their tags, the franchise tag or the transition tag. But maybe that Super Bowl loss really, changed the Chiefs' mind of we're really going to make sure that this offensive line stays intact, especially the interior. So you have Creed Humphrey in there. Joe Tooney will go back to left guard, and then you have Trey Smith in there. So Trey Smith, the franchise tag makes him the highest paid guard in the NFL automatically because Landon Dickerson's at $21 million. This will give him $23 million, I believe. I do think the Chiefs they're going to try to work out a long-term deal. I'm not going to rule out a tag and trade, even though I think that's highly unlikely.
I don't think that was the reason for it.
Yeah, I think it was extending the period to negotiate a deal and kind of take him off the market so other teams can't go after him. I like the move from the Chiefs. I do think it kind of takes Nick Bolton out of the picture to be honest with you, unless you can get him for not a cheap contract, but a cheaper contract that you would get on the market.
Trey Smith is a great guard. He's one of the best guards in football. But I don't like the move. I don't like it. First off, now all of a sudden, if you're negotiating a contract and he already has this base of being the highest paid guard, can you even lower the pay per year in a negotiation? I don't think so. And I don't think he's the best guard in football. I think that he's very good, but he plays next to one of the best centers. And I think he plays on the opposite end of the best guard in football. And if you sign Trey Smith, I just don't think you sign Joe Tooney. And I think Joe Tooney should be.
I think Joe Tooney's gonna be gone regardless.
And I think
he's an older player.
I don't care.
Trey Smith's only 25. He's only 25.
Age isn't always everything here. Joe Tooney just played left tackle he wasn't playing the best left tackle in football, but he was if you thought Joe Tooney was just left tackle and you watched him this year, you think he's a top 12, top 10 left tackle. And he's way better at guard. And the Chiefs struggle at left tackle and right tackle. And I just don't think you can invest in the tackles as well because they cannot draft tackles as we've seen. They do a terrible job of it. But
they drafted tackle once.
No, but they drafted second-round tackles, third-round tackles, Wayne Morris. They drafted multiple tackles.
Wayne Morris. Well, they drafted Wayne Morris, Kingsley Samatia they drafted.
And they've taken other shots later. They just aren't good at drafting tackles. Lucas Niang, bad pick. They're just bad at drafting tackles. I would not. Defense. But I mean, I don't think it's the move.
In their defense, I would say all those tackles you mentioned. And when you draft later in the draft, later in the first round, it's gonna be more difficult to land at left tackle. But all those picks were second, third, fourth.
But they drafted them with the intention. They weren't even serviceable. They were bad. It's weird. Juwan Taylor is mid, but everyone acts like he sucks. He doesn't suck. He's mid tackle.
I think for the amount of penalties that he accounts for, I do think he's bad.
I don't think he sucks. He doesn't suck. People think he sucks because his contract's bad. I don't like when people do that. When they say the player's not as good as he actually is just because he has a bad contract. That's two different discussions. Contract's bad. We all know that. But I just don't think it's smart to invest in your entire interior O-line.
Okay. Let's say that they didn't do this, okay? And what left tackle's on the market? I know Cam Robinson's a free agent, but if there's a left tackle on the market, it's usually not a good sign because teams don't allow left tackles just to walk out.
Cam Robinson, look at Cam Robinson. He was on the Jaguars. That was done. And the only reason he went to the Vikings is because their superstar left tackle got hurt for the year, and they're trying to win a Super Bowl. They understood that was a rental. So he's going to the market because he's a rental. but he was a good rental. So I'd rather have Cam Robinson. And they were talking about, like, was it Kingsley that Andy Reid said was developing at guard? You can have two great interior linemen and have a third one be okay. It's not like the Chiefs are this power run football team. They haven't been since Kareem Hunt's prime. So they don't even use the interior to its full capacity. I just don't like if you're going to be paying. I mean, Creed Humphrey's worth his contract. Tooney's definitely worth his. And Trey Smith is great. I just don't think he's a top 5 guard in football. I mean, I'm not some offensive line expert, but just he gets a lot of penalties too. Chiefs fan, he gets.
I also think that's because he's playing alongside Juwan Taylor. And I know that
he's also playing alongside Creed Humphrey.
I realize that, but when the right tackle is getting exposed a lot,
but he's not getting exposed all the time. He gets some penalties.
Trey Smith also allowed 0 sacks this season. So
he also gets Mahomes, who's dumping the ball off. I just don't think it's this. He's getting Mahomes dumping the ball off quickly. You just don't face as many good interior rushers as exterior rushers. The better pass rushers, for the most part, on the outside in football.
I'm completely fine with him because even if they don't agree to a long-term deal, you can trade him. If he has become disgruntled and he's like, I want to get paid, okay, fine. Trade him. And maybe that actually makes you happier if the Chiefs actually get something for him on the trade market. Or B, you let him play on the tag, and in your case, they can let him walk next season, and then you pay Joe Tooney like you like. I don't see the problem. Tagging him, I know it counts for a lot of money. I understand that. And with Travis Kelce,
the most money of any guard. You're trying to win a Super Bowl this year.
They're also trying to build. Here's the thing with the Chiefs, in any team, in my opinion. Yeah, you want to win that year, but you also want to build a team that can win for multiple years, not just go all in for 1 year. I'm totally fine with tagging Trey Smith. I'm completely fine with that. I don't see a problem with it. I said, you could trade him if contract talks break down.
A trade's not even guaranteed because a team, now that he's franchised, I just don't assume he's going to take any average money less than 23 point whatever. And that makes him the highest paid guard by $2 million. And he's not the best guard in football. He's not the best guard on his own team. Is a team going to say, here, Trey Smith, here's 5 years, 125? I don't know. And I just think because Trey Smith,
I think like the Bears the Bears, for instance, they have a quarterback on a rookie contract. Could I see him trade for Trey Smith?
But that's not a guarantee. Yeah. That's not a guarantee.
Well, nothing's guaranteed, but this does give them that possibility of doing that.
It's a possibility, but I don't like. I mean, I just don't like. I don't want to keep him in the first place for that money, because I don't believe that you build 3 interior linemen as your 3 best linemen unless you're running the football down the field, down people's throats. And the Chiefs won't do that unless they all of a sudden in the first round take like Hampton, and they probably still wouldn't do it. I don't see the logistical fit, and you don't. I'd rather take that money, sign Cam Robinson, or take that money and help get another pass rusher. Because I think if he's playing next to the best center in football, I just don't think he's a great guard. I don't know how truly great he is.
So you don't I think you can argue he's top 5, and I'm trying to think on top of my head. I don't.
I mean, he's not the best guard on the team. That's where I start. He's not better than Landon Dickerson. I really have to. I mean, it's hard with guards because then you really have. That's probably the least discussed position in football. Guards.
I think he has to be up there when you consider guards in the league. I think he has to be up there in top 5. He's definitely top 10. And I think
he definitely could be. Quentin Nelson is better. That's just one. I just still think he's a guy.
And I think the fact that he's only 25, he can keep getting better. I don't think this is.
I just don't. He's playing next to great players. I just know Joe Tooney's better, and I'd rather invest in Joe Tooney. And that's just not good. Chris Lindstrom's better. Sam Cosmi for Washington. I'm just looking at PFF now, so it's not the best thing in the world.
Oh, I'll take Trey Smith over Sam Cosmi. Cosmi's a really good player, but I'll take Trey Smith. And Cosmi's
Sam Cosmi's not playing next to the best center and the best guard in football. All these players are not playing nearly with the same amount of offensive line talent that he is. You get the Browns, Wyatt Teller. I think Robert Hunt was really good this year. I'm just looking at this list. Quinn Miners for Denver was really good. I just don't think Trey Smith's worth it. And still feel like he gets penalties, and I don't think Juwan Taylor's a bad right tackle. So I don't think it's Juwan Taylor getting exposed. I just don't feel like that's the case.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree with you more, but I understand your points.
But we don't even run the football down the middle. Like, what's the point of having 3 interior linemen if you're not going to?
I think the Chiefs,
1,400 yards.
When they won the Super Bowl, the back-to-back years, they were actually very dependent on the run game, and they actually ran the ball very well down.
But
this past year, Pacheco fell off a bit, and Kareem Hunt was an older player, so you didn't see the run game.
Have we had a 1,000-yard running back with those 3 guys?
No, you've also had a 7th-round running back as your starting running back, and Clyde
doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You're not running the ball enough to justify it. You're just not.
I think it's totally fine. Now, I do understand the point of now it's gonna be tough, more difficult to sign other players. Like I think Nick Bolton's definitely out the door. I do think, and I know you hate. Like I'm not gonna say you hate this player, but I do know we've had conversations in the past about this player. I do think Chase Young for a cheap deal could be a pretty good gift.
No, dude, that guy's just not. No. So he makes some solid plays. That is not the guy I want. Just not at all. He has to be next to a great defensive line, and you're getting Chris Jones and Karlaftis, a great player who's slowly decreasing. By my favorite player in this Chiefs era is Chris Jones. And then Karlaftis, a good defensive end, but not great. So, no, don't talk to me about Chase Young.
Let's move on to some wide receiver news. There's a couple of pieces that broke today. Or not broke, but rumors, trade interest. Let's start with the first one. And this one actually kind of caught me off guard. DK Metcalf to the Packers as a possibility. I believe the rumor was the 23rd overall pick and either Romeo Doubs or Dontayvion Wicks for DK Metcalf. Do you like this fit for both sides? Like, would this be a good acquisition on the Packers' part, and could DK make a pretty good impact on the Green Bay team?
If the trade is DK for a first and one of those receivers, I feel like that's given up a lot. That's given up like 120%. Like,
especially Wicks. I would be fine getting up Doubs, but Wicks I think has more talent. Doubs I think is just
Doubs
is solid. But he's like possession.
They're all solid.
And Doubs, I believe, is on an expiring contract. So I wouldn't mind giving up. Now, the first round pick, I would like to get like a third or a fourth in return.
But maybe if you give up Wicks, it doesn't actually have to be a first. So if that gets into it, I don't think Wicks is that much better than Doubs, where if I can save 40 slots of a pick, 32, that could change how I feel. But overall, just thinking about DK on the Packers, I like it. I do like it. I think that it could work. They need a 1. Jordan Love needs a 1. You know, he has a lot of nice pieces, but he just doesn't have that one dude where it's just like, okay, 3rd and 7. And DK's not known for that, but I think he can be that guy. So you'd have your 1, and then you'd have Watson still. You've had Doubs or Wicks. Why am I blanking on? You'd have Reed still.
And Watson, we'll see when Watson. I don't know when he's going to be able to come back next year.
No, yeah. But if he comes back later, it's your number 4. That's good. You have Kraft, Jacob. So I like it from Packers. And I was looking at the Twitter a little bit. Who's the guy? The guy reported his name, but then Packers guy was like, yeah, and then they're trying to trade Jair and get some picks back as well after the DK thing, if it goes through. And then from Seattle side, I mean, I think you have your 1 in JSN. So,
and to be honest, DK's been in trade rumors this entire offseason. I think he's going to be dealt. There's been so many teams that have been linked to trade for DK. I mean, the Chargers were once rumored to land or like trade for him early in the offseason. And for me, Metcalf, I think he's a good receiver, a really good receiver. But like we had this conversation earlier in the season and last offseason. I do believe JSN's a better technical receiver, better route runner.
Yeah, that's not a conversation.
DK Metcalf's good, but he's more of a body catcher. But like I said, I do think he's been in so many trade rumors that I do think if it's not this offseason, he'll be traded next offseason, I believe.
And I'm of the belief you don't need a high-end 1, and I don't think you need 2 1s. Like, I don't like when teams invest in 3 receivers or 2 receivers, and I feel like I've been proven right on that. But DK is like a low-end 1 to me, so that works for the Packers. If you're Seattle, I do
like it from Seattle's side too, to be honest with you.
No, get picks. I'd rather trade Lockett, but you're not getting nearly as much return. So
I think they're going to end up just cutting Lockett. No, I don't think Lockett really has a market.
But would you cut Lockett if you trade DK? I don't think so.
Well, here's the thing. Let's think about this. If Seattle has 2 1s, and what pick does Seattle hold right now? On top of my head, I don't know what pick.
I mean, they
currently have.
missed the playoffs, like probably like 17. Ooh,
Okay, so let's say this hypothetical plays out how it's being reported. They get a 23rd overall pick. So you have 17 and 23. You can easily utilize one of those picks on a receiver, and you can utilize one on a pass rusher, or you can really either use both those picks to trade up, or just go both on defense. Because they do need a marquee pass rusher. But I think this, like, from Seattle's perspective, I'm not as big on Metcalf as you are. And
18,
if you can get a 1 for Metcalf and you have 2 first-round picks, I do think it allows you to be
like
aggressive or address more positions of need on your roster. So I like this. If this trade went down, I like it more for Seattle than the Packers. Even though I do understand from Packers' perspective, they do need a bona fide physical type of receiver that can help Jordan Love out. And Jordan Love's a gunslinger too, so I do think this kind of helps down the field. A big body receiver that can come down some of those 50-50 balls.
Were you saying to trade up for a receiver if they make this trade?
No, I'm saying, I'm saying like trade up for if there's a player falling and you really like him. I'm not saying for a receiver. I mean in general, like if there's a pass rusher falling, or
because
if there's a quarterback you really like. No, I do not think they should package picks for. This is a weak receiver class.
Yeah,
I think
what I was gonna say. Unless McMillan fell to you, then. I'm
not a huge fan of his either because he doesn't create separation.
I
want to trade up for. If you give up Metcalf for McMillan, I want to say it's. I guess it would be.
Well, in this hypothetical, you're getting one of Dobbs or Wick, so you probably shouldn't. Yeah. Dobbs or Wick, so you probably shouldn't be taking receiver. But I'd like it from their side. I mean, you get a first-round pick for a receiver who's not your 1. I'm all for that. Yeah. I mean, the more I think about it just now, I just thought, like, you give a first-round pick and a receiver for a receiver who's not your number 1, yeah. I'm on all
and Metcalf was productive, but he kind of got not phased out of the offense, but JSN really became the focal point of that pass.
Yeah, he got hurt, came back, and he just wasn't, like, he still had, like, I think just a tad under 1,000 yards, if I look at his stats. And that's the thing.
But JSN led the team in targets, receptions, I believe yards, and I think touchdowns weren't that big of a margin between the two.
DK had only 5 touchdowns. DK missed 2 games. DK missed 2 games, still had 992 yards. So, like, if he plays one more game, he has 1,000. His lowest career was 2019, his rookie year. If so, his lowest total ever is 900. So the Packers are still getting a receiver who, like, you're getting at least 1,000-yard receiver. So, I mean, I think it could work for both sides. I still think Wick/Dobbs and a first for DK. If I'm Packers, that's not exactly what I want. That's a lot. So I'd like to, like, get a pick back or maybe make a second-round pick or something. But I like the concept.
Yep. Let's move on to, and this is the last thing we'll talk about today. Not as big of a story, in my opinion, as a DK, but Jordan Schultz did report the Commanders and Texans are both going after Deebo. The Broncos were also rumored to be going after him, but Texans and Commanders have been much more aggressive. The Texans have DeMeco Ryans, who was in San Francisco with Deebo, and the Commanders' general manager was in San Francisco with Deebo Samuel. So there's connections there. I mean, it's unfortunate because I think the Texans, they really need to go after an interior offensive line or his offensive line in general. Now, this will be like a mid to late round pick for Deebo because he's kind of fallen off. But Tank Dell's down. Stephon Diggs is a free agent. They kind of need another receiver. If I'm Texans, I don't think they should be going after Deebo. Now, Commanders, you have a quarterback on a rookie deal. You could be aggressive. But Deebo, to me, I've been on this for a while. I just think he's more of a playmaker rather than receiver. And I've been on that for a couple of years now.
And I still think I'm always going to hold that he was a good receiver. He was a top receiver, and now I think he's aged. Denver, I like the fit in Denver because you already know Sean Payton's going to use them in weird ways, similar to Niners, but probably in his own kind of style. I feel like I trust Cliff Kingsbury would do something similar. Even though, again, it's like if you sign De'Ami Brown for like $8 million a year or trade for Deebo, give me De'Ami Brown. He was big in big games. They have chemistry with Daniels. I'm not big on needing to get a second receiver, especially at Deebo's price tag. Maybe Niners pay a lot of it and you don't give up a lot, so that's not the worst part. But I mean, I don't like it from the Texans.
No, from Texans, I think for me, Deebo is just a name value at this point. I really don't think he's that good of a player anymore. I really don't. He didn't
have to have the right vision.
There were games this year where he was just invisible on the field. He didn't break tackles like he used to a couple years ago. He had one of the best breaking tackle rates in the league, and this year it'd be like he would never beat the first guy. The first guy would always bring him down, and I think that's kind of what made Deebo. And if you're not getting that, he doesn't create separation. He's not a good route runner. If I'm these two teams, I would just look elsewhere, especially if I'm Texans. I think Texans look toward you have the 22nd pick in the draft, 23rd, 24th, somewhere around there. Go take one of these receivers. I'd rather take a Luther Burden than have Deebo. But at the same time, Luther Burden's kind of an undersized guy, like they've had with Tank Dell. I think the Texans are in a very interesting spot of what they should do with their it's tough because if Tank Dell wasn't hurt, I don't think he should be a receiver either. But there's a lot of mock drafts out there with them taking a receiver, like Field Yates, Mel Kiper. They've had the Texans taking a receiver in multiple of their mock drafts.
I mean, those could be accurate because I think the Texans may have this idea to get two receivers, and it doesn't make sense because you have a quarterback who's supposed to be really good, and you have a top
out the year.
Yeah, okay, I don't even care. I don't care. You have a top 5 receiver and a quarterback. He got destroyed by bad protection. Get O-line help. I don't invest a first-round pick in receiver.
Well, especially in this year's draft, I wouldn't do it.
It's not a good draft for receiver.
There's Luther Burden, Isaiah Bond. There's another Texas receiver for whatever reason.
Matthew Golden,
yeah, those type of players. McMillan, who was viewed as a top 10 pick for the majority of the offseason, is now he's kind of sliding down boards. So it's a very weak.
I watched McMillan in person, and I remember coming away with that. He's good at I feel like he has good hands, he's good. Just everything's good, but he just doesn't create a ton of separation. I think he's going to be a good receiver in the NFL, but I don't think he's going to be this.
I don't think he's a superstar.
Yeah. Let's say McMillan falls to the Texans, because I still think he's probably the most sound when it comes to hands and stuff like that. I'm okay if he falls. Well, you hear me there?
I think the internet's went out. Yeah. You were saying McMillan, if he goes to the Texans, would be.
I'd be okay with it. That's the one. If he falls,
he's arguably the best player on the board at that point as well. And McMillan and Nico Collins on the outside. There's two big weapons for you that you can,
But I don't Stroud. I feel like Stroud should be good enough where he doesn't need Nico Collins and a first-round receiver.
No, if I'm the offensive line, they already have their pass. The good thing with Texans, they have their edge rushers locked in for the next. Or was Daniil Hunter was only a 2-year deal, so we have Will Anderson who's
not longer.
I thought it was 2 years.
It wasn't longer. Yeah, you're right. It was Greenyer.
It was basically fully guaranteed.
To the Vikings, his deal was 4. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. But yeah, Will Anderson, superstar pass rusher that they trade up for in the draft, pick after C.J. Stroud. So yeah, I really think Texans are an offensive line away from being true contenders in the AFC, but they have to get the offensive line nailed down.
I'm no Diggs fan, but he was doing well. Just re-sign Diggs for a cheaper deal because he got hurt.
You said re-sign Diggs?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that signing Diggs, I think it's fine if you can get him for a cheap deal. But if you're going expensive, But yeah, I think this time of year it's always interesting. NFL Combine, you start seeing a lot of things coming out, rumors, trades. This is a time where teams are discussing with each other about draft picks and all that. So I This is why the NFL is king. I mean, there's never the off season is more entertaining than some sports regular seasons. So that it's just NFL's always going to be around. We'll probably be back. We'll be back next week. Should we do a mock draft next week? We have not done a mock draft yet. Or should we do like a free agency prediction video? And
Next week would be right before free agency, so I feel like free agency because I think I'm still not fully. I wouldn't be ready. I wouldn't be ready for.
Well, also free agency does it'll paint a clearer picture for how the draft could play out. So yeah, we'll do a free agency prediction video next week. We'll probably follow that up with a mock draft, and then we have to start talking some NBA. There's been a lot of NBA going on.
Been good.
March Madness is right around the corner, but yeah, I do want to get those two things done before we address those. But yeah, I think sports right now, March is kind of like a perfect time of. There's no more football, but there's a lot of other stuff going on, and you still have football, draft, combine stuff going on. So, yeah, we'll be back next week with NFL free agency prediction video. It probably won't be like last year where we had a bulk of free agents that we predicted because this year's just not as loaded of a class. But yeah, like I said at the beginning of the video, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and we also post our videos on Spotify as well.
Yep.